For the crew of the USS Barry DDG-52, the Taiwan Strait might begin to feel like a second home as the Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer conducted its fourth routine transit and entered the South China Sea on Saturday. As with past missions, the U.S. Navy warship was once again conducting maritime security operations to promote peace and stability in the region. A continued presence in the South China Sea is vital in maintaining a free and open Indo-Pacific, said CMDR Chris Gall, Barry's commanding officer. The freedom of all nations to navigate in international waters is critically important. Barry's transit of the Taiwan Strait yesterday ensured the right and instills the confidence of all nations to trade and communicate in the South China Sea. The question now is whether Beijing protests the return of the U.S. Navy vessel as it had done when USS Barry conducted a transit of the Taiwan Strait and operated within accordance with international law. While the U.S. Navy maintained that the ship's transit through the Taiwan Strait was to demonstrate Washington's commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific region, the Chinese government suggested the ship's very presence undermined peace and stability. Beijing also said that Chinese troops would remain on high alert to resolutely safeguard its national sovereignty and territorial integrity. USS Barry was not alone in the recent transit. The People's Liberation Army Navy Plan also conducts regular transits of the straits, as do the navies of Taiwan and Japan. The strait, which is part of the South China Sea, connects to the East China Sea to the north. At its narrowest part, it is just 130 kilometers (81 miles) wide. In addition to the military vessels that seem to transit the strait with increasing regularity, it hosts major shipping lanes and is also a major location for commercial fishing. It is incredible the number of fishing boats and merchants who pass through and conduct their business in these waters every day, said Lieutenant Jordan Brooks, one of Barry's officers of the deck. To accomplish our mission safely, effectively, and professionally, Barry constantly works as a team and is always alert and communicating. Barry is forward deployed to Yokosuka, Japan, and is assigned to Destroyer Squadron 15, the largest U.S. destroyer squadron. It has maintained a constant presence in the South China Sea. This November's transit marks the fifth time that USS Barry, named after the father of the American Navy, Commodore John Barry, had conducted routine operations in the South China Sea. This past April, Barry conducted a Freedom of Navigation (FON) operation around the Paracel Islands and then rendezvoused with the USS America Expeditionary Strike Group for operations in the South China Sea, said Lieutenant CMDR Timothy Baker, Barry's Plans and Tactics Officer. Whether operating independently or as a part of a larger group, Barry serves as a highly visible symbol of the overwhelming force the United States can deploy to defeat aggression. During the April deployment, the People's Liberation Army Navy's Youth Theater Command announced that it had expelled the warship from the South China Sea and claimed Barry was illegally trespassing in China's territorial waters. The U.S. Navy disputed the claim and said Barry proceeded as planned without encountering any unsafe or unprofessional behavior from Chinese military aircraft or warships. The warship has maintained a constant presence in the Indo-Pacific, and this year has sailed more than 65,000 nautical miles and participated in 8 multinational exercises and training missions alongside partners from Australia, Canada, Japan, and the Republic of Korea, South Korea. Most recently, Barry participated in Exercise Keen Sword, a biennial exercise designed to enhance Japan-US combat readiness and interoperability while strengthening relationships and demonstrating the U.S. resolve to support the security interests of allies and partners in the region. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's national security advisor Robert O'Brien told officials in the Philippines and Vietnam that Washington would fight to keep the Indo-Pacific region free and open. The two countries are among the most vocal regional opponents against Chinese attempts to dominate the South China Sea and its disregard for boundaries outlined in international maritime law. Speaking in the Philippines after concluding a trip to Vietnam, Mr. O'Brien said, "Our message is we're going to be here, we've got your back, and we're not leaving. I think when we send that message, that peace through strength message, is the way to deter China. It is a way to ensure peace." Washington has long opposed China's claims and regularly sends warships through the strategic waterway to demonstrate freedom of navigation there. Beijing insists China is a force for peace in the region and sees the U.S. presence as provocative and interference by an outsider. Mr. O'Brien said the U.S. stood with the Philippines in protecting its offshore resource entitlements. He told officials, "Those resources belong to the children and grandchildren of the people here. They don't belong to some other country that just because they may be bigger than the Philippines. That's just wrong." His visit came after the Philippines suspended plans to scrap a Visiting Forces Agreement (VFA) with the U.S. for a second time, as the treaty allies work on a long-term mutual defense arrangement. Earlier this month, former Philippines military chief Emmanuel Bautista warned China would seize the islands if tensions in the volatile region boiled over into conflict. Mr. Bautista outlined key routes around the Philippines that could become strategically important if war were to break out between the U.S. and China. He said, "Assuming things get out of hand and result in a shooting war, China will seize the Philippines." Speaking to an online forum hosted by the National Youth Movement for the West Philippine Sea, he said, "If you want to influence the South China Sea, you need to control these choke points."